Hi, I'm Pablo Cruz, and welcome to Flashback, the show that looks back at popular TV shows from our past. Tonight, we'll look at 3 short clips from 1960s TV shows which all incorporated various FASB updates into their storylines. Let's get started with our first flashback. Testing for intangible impairment under the current rules is complex and costly. Let's check out FASB's solution in a classic scene with that goofy kid, Leave It to Beaver.
Here you go. How was your day, dear?
It was okay, June. How are the boys?
Well, I think you need to talk to our youngest. He had a little trouble today with intangible impairment testing.
What? Doesn't he know that under a recent FASB update, he may be able to bypass that testing?
Now, Ward, don't be too hard on the Beaver.
Gee, Dad's gonna be really sore when he finds out you failed your intangible testing.
Well, gee golly, Wally, it's not easy. First you have to calculate the value of the intangible assets, and then you compare that to the carrying amount. And if it exceeds the carrying amount, you have to recognize an impairment loss. A guy could grow old doing that.
Gee whiz, Beeb, didn't you know that you have an option to look at other stuff before you go and do all that testing?
Really?
Of course, Beeb. You look at the obvious stuff before you waste your time with all the math junk.
Oh.
Gee, Beeb, you wouldn't want people to think you were goofy or something.
Beaver, don't you have something to ask your father?
Dad, how will I know if I can skip the impairment testing?
Well, Bieber, you'll want to look at qualitative factors to see if it is more likely than not that the intangible is impaired. And if it's not, then you can skip the testing.
Like what kind of factors?
Oh, many things, dear. Inputs, changes to the carrying amount, positive and mitigating factors, or even any other recent fair value calculations.
Gee golly, I can't wait to tell the guys at school. I'll never have to test impairment again.
Now, Beaver, never say never.
She's right, Bieber. If you do have to perform the test, and you'll find that the fair value is less than the carrying amount, then you have to recognize an impairment loss.
Oh, I will, Dad. Wow, this new rule is cool. You've made a believer out of me.
Oh, Bieber.
Well, I know I'm a believer. Some examples of those factors would be cost, financial performance, legal, entity, or industry factors, or even general economic conditions. On to our next clip. Did you know that not-for-profit entities are having trouble with classification in their statement of cash flows? The problem involves the sale of donated financial assets. Is it operating, investing, or financing? Looks like we'll need a detective to figure this one out.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you're about to see is true. The names have been changed so we won't get sued.
This is the city, Los Angeles, California. I work here. My name is Thursday. I'm a CPA. It's Tuesday, April 7th, and I'm in a car.
This has been a tough case, Joe. Not-for-profits often sell off financial assets that have been donated to them.
Nothing's easy about not-for-profit entities. In this case, we're dealing with an entity that has sold donated financial assets.
You mean someone gave them securities and they turned around and sold them for cash?
Happens all the time, Bill. They have to figure out where to put it in the statement of cash flows.
So, what's the big deal, Joe? The cash came from a donation, so it goes in operating, right?
You sure about that, Bill? What if they held it for a while? Wouldn't that make it in investing? What if they needed temporary cash? Could that possibly make it financing?
I see what you mean, Joe. Everyone could be classifying the same transaction differently.
That's not a pretty thought, Bill. Fortunately, the FASB issued an update.
So how's it work, Joe?
If there are no not-for-profit imposed restrictions on the sale and the assets are immediately sold and converted to cash, then you classify it as operating.
Well, that sounds reasonable, Joe. And I suppose that if the donor has restricted the use to some, say, long-term purpose, then it would be considered financing?
Precisely. So where are we headed?
Headquarters faxed over the address of the suspect.
Let me take a look at that.
Here. You want the map they sent with it?
No, Bill, just the facts. It was 11:40 a.m. when we arrived at the suspect's home. Bright colors, lace curtains, kind of a cute little place. And we got out of the car.
What I don't understand, Joe, is how this could happen when the update corrects the problem.
Sadly, Bill, our suspect is not aware of the update. Mr. Bieber,
Yes?
you're under arrest for singing and dancing like a fool instead of keeping up with your continuing education.
I didn't realize it was the end of the week already. Must be Friday. One important point that they didn't mention was that in all other cases, the transaction should be classified as investing. Obviously, this is still a difficult topic, but at least there are now clear parameters to consider when deciding the proper classification. Let's move on. Our next clip is a favorite of mine, and it deals with a specialized area of accounting, the film industry. In this clip, we'll look at a FASB update that deals with the impairment analysis of unamortized film cost. Let's leave our familiar world of sight and sound and enter the fifth dimension in a classic clip from the Nightlight Zone.
How will I ever figure this out? I thought I finally understood fair value measurements. But it looks like the industry guidance for film costs are inconsistent with the general rules. I can only hope they discuss it at the conference.
Meet Mr. Shatner, an ordinary CPA on an ordinary plane, heading to an ordinary CPE resort conference. But unbeknownst to Mr. Shatner, the flight plan has been revised to take him on a non-stop flight to the Nightlight Zone.
How do I know when to write down unadvertised film costs?
Is everything all right, sir?
Oh yes, I'm fine. I'm just confused about the industry guidance for the write-down of unadvertised film costs. Did you see that?
No, what's the problem with the guidance?
If evidence exists about a write-down after the balance sheet date but before the issue date, then there's a rebuttable presumption that the conditions existed at the balance sheet date.
So?
But that's not considered for other fair value measurements. There, did you see it that time?
Sir, there's nothing out there. Anyway, the FASB has issued an update that eliminates the rebuttable presumption. You have nothing to worry about. Just relax.
I suppose she's right. I am getting upset about nothing. I'll simply use a model in my assessment of unadvertised film costs. And it's foolish to think there could be anything out on the wing. Help! It's hideous! It's hideous! I tell you, it's out there! It's going to kill us all! Help!
Someone help me restrain this man!
Help me! Help!
Things may not always be what they appear to be, but fair value is always the measurement basis used to assess impairment, both here and in the Nightlight Zone.
Wow, now that was creepy. The bottom line is that unamortized film costs should be tested for impairment when there is an indication that the fair value is less than the carrying amount. It's that simple. By the way, is it just me, or did all of the shows back in the 60s seem to have the same celebrities as guests?
Hey Pablo, I was in town, so I figured I'd stop by to help you out on the show.
Whoa. That's it for this week. Time for me to cut on out of here. Now.
Hey, wait up!